Ever get that feeling like, as we get older, where a name is just on the tip of your tongue and you just can't quite grasp it?
Oh, yeah.
Or you walk into a room and completely forget why you're there.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
It's so frustrating.
It is.
And we just kind of chalk it up to getting older, right?
Right?
What if I told you that it could be more than just a quirky side effect of aging?
Okay.
What if it was like a signal
Okay.
that your brain's natural cleaning system, like its own little housekeeping crew, was actually slowing down?
Interesting.
Well, we found some research that suggests that we might actually be able to give those cleaning pathways a jump start
Oh, wow.
and potentially boost our memory along the way.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's what we're diving into today.
All right.
This really fascinating new study out of Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis.
Okay.
And it's just published in Cell, so it's really hot off the presses.
Very cool.
And it looks at how we might be able to target the brain's waste drainage system to improve memory and tackle age-related cognitive decline.
Interesting.
So, and the really interesting thing here is that they're looking at vessels outside the brain as a new way to approach this.
That is fascinating.
So we're going to break it down for you today
Great.
and pull out all the important insights without getting too bogged down in the technical details.
Perfect.
So let's start with this idea of the brain having a waste problem.
Okay.
It kind of sounds like our brains need a little spring cleaning as we get older.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
So can you explain more about what you mean by the brain having a waste problem?
Yeah, absolutely. As we age, our brain's ability to kind of clear out these metabolic byproducts,
Okay.
think of it as like the exhaust fumes from brain activity.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it.
It is?
And, other waste materials starts to decline.
So it's like the trash isn't getting taken out as efficiently.
Exactly.
And it just starts piling up.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, and this is important for you, the listener, to understand, is that there's a potential link between this waste buildup and neurodegenerative conditions.
Oh, wow.
Like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Really?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a direct cause,
Okay.
but it could definitely contribute to the problem.
So the trash buildup might make those conditions worse.
Exactly.
That's unsettling, but good to know.
It is, yeah.
So where does this waste normally go?
Right.
I mean, the brain doesn't have a little garbage chute or anything.
No, not quite.
Uh,
But it does have something called the meningeal lymphatic vessels.
the what?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful.
It is.
Meningeal lymphatic vessels.
Okay.
And this is a relatively new discovery. For the listener, this wasn't something we knew about forever.
Okay.
It was only about a decade ago that Dr. Kipnis's lab found this network of vessels
Interesting.
surrounding the brain.
Okay.
And these vessels act as the brain's dedicated drainage system.
So it's like the brain's own personal plumbing.
Yeah. Okay, so how does it work? So these vessels, they collect fluid and waste from the brain
Okay.
and channel it into the lymph nodes.
And the lymph nodes are part of the immune system, right?
That's right.
So it's like the brain's waste is being processed and filtered out.
Precisely. It's like a built-in recycling center for the brain,
I like that.
making things clean and functioning smoothly.
Okay, so that's how it's supposed to work, right?
Right.
But you mentioned that this new study actually looked at ways to improve this process.
Exactly.
So what did they do?
Well, the researchers wanted to see if they could boost the function of these lymphatic vessels in older mice
Okay.
and see if that would actually improve their memory.
I see. So like a tune-up for the brain's plumbing.
Exactly.
I like it.
So they designed this clever memory test,
Okay.
and it's based on the idea that mice, just like us, are naturally curious.
Okay.
And if they remember something,
Yeah.
they're less interested in it.
So like if you give a kid the same toy every day, they're eventually going to get bored with it.
Exactly. So in this experiment,
Yeah.
they showed these older mice 2 identical black rods,
Okay.
let them explore them, get familiar with them.
All right.
And then the next day,
Yeah.
they presented the mice with one of those familiar black rods
Okay.
and a brand new object, a shiny silver prism.
Ooh, shiny.
Right. Something new and exciting.
Okay, so what happened? Did the mice remember the black rod from the day before?
Well, that's the thing. A mouse with good memory should be way more curious about that shiny new prism.
Right, because they've already seen the black rod.
Exactly. And they'd spend more time checking it out.
Makes sense.
But what they found was that the older mice, they kind of spent the same amount of time with both objects.
So their memory wasn't quite as sharp?
Yeah, like the new didn't seem so new to them anymore.
That's interesting.
It is.
So how did they try to improve their memory?
All right, so this is where it gets really cool.
Okay.
They use a special treatment on some of the older mice, and this treatment was designed to stimulate the growth of those meningeal lymphatic vessels.
So they were basically trying to make the brain's drainage system more efficient.
Exactly. The idea was to boost the drainage capability,
Okay.
so more of that waste could be cleared away from the brain.
I see. So it's like giving the brain's cleaning crew some extra help.
Exactly.
Did it work?
The results were pretty amazing.
Tell me.
The older mice that got this lymphatic boosting treatment,
Yeah.
they spent way more time exploring that new silver prism
Really?
compared to the older mice that didn't get the treatment.
Wow. So they were actually able to improve their memory by enhancing this drainage system.
That's right. It suggests that improving the brain's drainage can have a real impact on memory.
That's a big deal.
It is.
I mean, if we could apply this to humans,
Right.
that could be huge for tackling age-related memory decline.
Absolutely. And, one of the researchers, Dr. Kim, he was quoted saying, "A functioning lymphatic system is critical for brain health and memory. Therapies that support the health of the body's waste management system may have health benefits for a naturally aging brain."
That's a great quote. It really captures the essence of this whole idea.
Yeah, it does. And the study actually delved even deeper.
Oh,
They wanted to understand why this improvement was happening.
okay.
What's going on when the lymphatic system isn't functioning at its best?
So what did they find?
Well, they discovered this really fascinating connection between the drainage system and inflammation.
Inflammation.
Yeah, and also how brain cells communicate.
Neuronal signaling.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm following.
So when the lymphatic system gets sluggish
Okay.
and that waste builds up in the brain,
Yeah.
it seems to stress out the resident immune cells,
Which are?
microglia.
Oh.
They're like the brain's cleanup crew.
Okay.
And when there's too much waste, they get overwhelmed.
Like they can't keep up with all the trash.
Precisely. And when they get stressed, they start sending out a distress signal,
What kind of signal?
an inflammatory protein called IL-6.
I see. So the brain is literally sending out a signal that something is wrong.
Exactly.
And what does that signal do?
Well, the study found that increased levels of this IL-6,
Yeah.
they actually act on brain cells to promote cognitive decline.
Oh, wow. So the signal itself is actually contributing to the problem.
Yeah, it's like a vicious cycle.
So the waste buildup stresses the immune cells,
Right.
which then release a signal that actually harms brain function.
That's a good summary.
It's like a domino effect,
It is.
starting with something as seemingly simple as waste buildup.
Yeah, and it highlights how interconnected these systems are.
It really does.
We often think of the brain as separate from the rest of the body.
Right, like it's in its own little world.
Exactly, but this research shows that's not the case at all.
It's all connected.
It is, and this IL-6.
Yeah.
It has a very specific effect on neurons. The researchers found an imbalance in the signals that the neurons were receiving, basically the way brain cells talk to each other.
Right.
And specifically, there were fewer of these noise-canceling signals.
Noise-canceling signals, what are those?
Well, think of them as the signals that help filter out extraneous information,
Okay.
so the brain can communicate more clearly.
So without them, it's like the brain gets overwhelmed by its own internal chatter.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like trying to have a conversation in a noisy room.
Exactly.
You can't focus on what the other person is saying.
Right, and this imbalance,
Yeah.
driven by the elevated IL-6,
Okay.
it actually leads to changes in the brain's wiring.
Really?
Yeah, and ultimately affects how well it functions.
Especially when it comes to memory.
Exactly, but here's the really promising part.
Okay, tell me.
The treatment that boosted those lymphatic vessels,
Yeah.
it also caused the IL-6 levels to drop.
Oh, wow.
And it restored that noise-canceling system in the brain.
So by taking out the trash, they were able to calm down those stressed immune cells
Yeah.
and let the brain communicate more clearly again.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It is, and it opens up so many possibilities for new therapies.
Right, because if we can find ways to enhance these lymphatic drainage pathways in humans,
Yeah,
it could be a game changer for treating age-related cognitive decline.
absolutely.
And, one of the biggest challenges with current treatments is actually getting medications into the brain.
That's a huge hurdle, the blood-brain barrier.
Right, it's notoriously difficult to cross.
And Dr. Kipnis actually highlighted that in the study. He said, the physical blood-brain barrier hinders the efficacy of therapies for neurological disorders.
So how does this new approach address that problem?
Well, by targeting the lymphatic vessels outside the brain,
Yeah.
we might be able to bypass the blood-brain barrier altogether.
So we can improve cognitive function without having to directly penetrate the brain.
Exactly. It's a less invasive approach.
And potentially more effective.
Right.
That's incredible.
It is. And Dr. Kipnis even mentioned that their previous work showed that some experimental Alzheimer's therapies were actually more effective in mice
Really?
when combined with treatments that improved brain drainage.
So it's like clearing the path for other treatments to work better.
That's a great way to put it.
This is really exciting stuff.
It is. And if we think about the bigger picture, this research comes about a decade after the initial discovery of these brain lymphatic vessels.
Right.
And it really underscores how important this system is.
For overall brain health.
Exactly.
You know, it's like we're just starting to understand the brain's immune system.
And how it's connected to the rest of the body.
Yeah.
It's a whole new frontier.
And what does Dr. Kipnis think about the future of this research?
He's very optimistic, he said. Targeting the more easily accessible lymphatic vessels that are located outside the brain may prove to be an exciting new frontier in the treatment of brain disorders. We may not be able to revive neurons, but we may be able to ensure their most optimal functioning through modulation of meningeal lymphatic vessels.
That's a powerful statement.
It is.
It's like we can't necessarily create new brain cells,
Right.
but we can create the best possible environment for the ones we already have.
Exactly, and that's really encouraging.
It is, and it's important to acknowledge all the support that made this research possible.
Oh, absolutely.
The study mentions funding from the NIH, the BJC Investigators Program, the Neuroscience Innovation Foundation, and the National Research Foundation of Korea.
A real global effort.
It is, and it's also worth noting that Dr. Kipnis co-founded a company called Row Bio
Okay,
and has patents related to this work,
I see.
which is often how scientific breakthroughs lead to new treatments.
Right, from the lab to the clinic.
Exactly, and the research itself is openly available. Public
Yeah.
can sell. Under the title, Meningeal Lymphatics Microglia Axis Regulates Synaptic Physiology.
Catchy title.
It is a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
But the key takeaway here
Yes, for our listeners.
is that enhancing the brain's natural waste removal system
Right.
by targeting those meningeal lymphatic vessels,
Those drainage pathways
yeah, it holds incredible promise.
for improving memory and potentially combating those cognitive changes that come with aging.
And the fact that we can do this from outside the blood-brain barrier,
Right?
that opens up a whole new avenue for less invasive therapies.
Exactly. It's a really exciting development
It is, and it makes you think.
about what else we might discover.
Yeah, like what other seemingly unrelated systems in our bodies.
Could actually hold the key to brain health and cognitive longevity.
It's a fascinating question,
It is.
and something for all of us to ponder.
Absolutely. There's so much more to learn.
There really is.
And we're just at the beginning of this journey.
It's an exciting time to be following this research.
It really is. The future of brain health is looking brighter.
I agree.
And we'll be here to keep you updated on the latest breakthroughs.
So stay tuned
And keep those brains clean.
and keep those brains sharp.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.